Okay, so have you ever, like, thought about what it would have been like to be George Washington,
Yeah.
right? Like, leading a revolution is one thing, but having to then build a whole new country from scratch, talk about pressure.
Oh, absolutely.
That's what we're going to be, like, looking into today, going through all those sources you sent over about all the challenges Washington had to face.
Right.
And we've got, like, excerpts from the history book, George Washington and the Challenges of Leading a New Nation.
Yeah, wow. Yeah.
Plus some YouTube videos on his farewell address
Okay.
and the Treaty of Greenville.
Okay.
So yeah, get ready, because this is going to be a pretty wild ride through history.
I think what's really interesting about all these sources is how much they kind of humanize Washington.
Yeah.
You know, we tend to think of him as this, like, stoic figure up on a pedestal.
Right.
But he was dealing with some really serious, real-world problems
Yeah.
that could easily torn the young nation apart.
And it all, like, starts with setting the scene
Yeah,
back
yeah.
in 1792.
Right.
The book mentions that Washington was really hoping for a peaceful presidency.
Yeah.
But there was this one major hotspot,
Okay.
the Northwest Territory.
Yeah.
Just constant tension.
And slide 7 of the book really gets into why this area was like such a powder keg.
Yeah.
It wasn't just about the land,
Yeah.
though that was obviously a huge part of it.
Right.
But you also had American settlers pushing westward,
Mm-hmm.
Native American tribes fighting to protect their homelands.
Yeah.
And then you've got the British and the Spanish
Oh, yeah.
still kind of trying to, like, pull strings from the sidelines.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a recipe for conflict, for sure.
And think about it, like, control of the Mississippi River
Mm-hmm.
and the port of New Orleans
Right.
was critical back then.
Absolutely.
Whoever had that basically controlled a huge chunk of American trade.
Yeah, it was like holding the keys to the economic kingdom.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you can see why the Northwest Territory became this, like, focal point for all these competing interests.
Absolutely.
And then things escalate
Oh, yeah.
even further with the Battle of Fallen Timbers in 1794.
Right.
The book on slide 8 describes how Washington sends troops to secure the territory,
Mm-hmm.
and they end up clashing with Native Americans who are
Right.
being supported by,
Yeah.
wait for it, the British.
Oh, wow.
I thought we just fought a war to get them out of our business.
It just goes to show you that history rarely has, like, clean endings.
Mm-hmm.
The British, they were still holding on to forts in that region.
Right.
And by backing the Native Americans,
Mm-hmm.
they could try and keep their influence in this, like,
Yeah.
really strategically vital area.
So it wasn't just like a good guys versus bad guys situation.
No.
Washington, a military leader himself,
Yeah.
had to make these, like, super tough calls
Right.
about using force
Yeah.
to protect what he saw as American interests.
And that raises, a really important question
Yeah.
for everyone listening to think about.
Right.
What were the long-term consequences of these actions?
Yeah.
How did they shape the relationship with Native American tribes
Right.
and the future of westward expansion?
Heavy stuff.
Yeah.
And then the plot thickens. The book also talks about the Neutrality Proclamation of 1793
Mm-hmm.
and how Washington was trying to juggle the ongoing involvement of Britain and Spain
Right,
in U.S. affairs.
Yeah.
It's like trying to walk a tightrope
Uh-huh.
with people tugging at you from both sides.
Absolutely. And he tries to address these tensions through treaties,
Yeah.
specifically Jay's treaty with Britain in 1794
Okay.
and Pinckney's treaty with Spain in 1795,
Got it.
both outlined on slide 11. The idea was to, like, smooth things over.
Yeah.
But did they really solve those underlying problems?
Right.
That's up for debate.
Okay, now things get really interesting when we turn to Washington's farewell address.
Yep.
The YouTube video we have paints this picture of a leader who's deeply worried about the growing divisions within the nation. It's almost like he's seeing cracks forming in the very foundation he works so hard to build.
He even uses this powerful metaphor
Yeah.
of, like, surrogate sons
Mm-hmm.
to describe Jefferson and Hamilton.
Wow.
Two brilliant minds, but constantly butting heads,
Yeah.
representing this larger national split. Right? It's almost like Shakespearean.
Yeah.
This clash of titans within his own cabinet.
And it makes you think,
Yeah.
could all these foreign entanglements,
Mhm.
especially in the Northwest Territory,
Right.
have actually fueled those domestic political divisions?
It's like trying to build a house when everyone's arguing about the blueprints.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So now let's shift gears a bit
Okay.
and talk about the Treaty of Greenville.
Right.
The YouTube video on this treaty from 1795 really brings it to life.
Okay.
It wasn't just, some document signed in a fancy room.
Right, right.
It involved multiple tribes, negotiations at Fort Greenville,
Yeah.
and it ultimately reshaped the map of the United States.
And it's crucial to remember that this treaty, while bringing a period of relative peace, came at a cost for the Native American tribes involved.
Right.
They were forced to cede large areas of land.
It really highlights the complexities and injustices faced by indigenous peoples during westward expansion. It's easy to look back and judge.
Right.
But you have to try and see it from their perspective.
Yeah.
All the pressure Washington was under, the limited options he felt he had.
Absolutely.
It all adds up to some incredibly difficult choices.
Exactly. History is about understanding, not just judging.
Right.
By understanding the challenges Washington faced, we get a deeper appreciation for the complexities of leadership and the lasting impact of his decisions.
And speaking of impact, one thing that really stood out to me from all these sources was just how much Washington stressed the idea of unity. It wasn't just some fluffy ideal for him.
Right.
It was fundamental to everything he did.
Yeah.
Especially in that farewell address video. It's like he knew that a nation built on revolution needed that shared sense of purpose to really survive.
It's incredibly insightful.
Yeah.
Especially considering the context.
Yeah.
Remember, the United States was this radical experiment at the time. This whole idea of a government based on we the people was unheard of.
Yeah.
Washington was smart enough to see that if the country started fracturing, whether along regional lines or ideological lines, the whole thing could collapse.
And he didn't just talk about unity. He actually worked to create it. His policies, the people he appointed to his cabinet, even his personal interactions, it all seemed geared towards bringing people together.
Absolutely. Think about his cabinet.
Yeah.
He purposely chose people with vastly different viewpoints.
Right.
Like Jefferson and Hamilton.
Right.
It was like he was saying, look, true unity isn't about everyone agreeing on everything.
Yeah.
It's about finding a way to work together, even when we disagree.
Such a powerful message for today, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
With all the political polarization we see, it's a good reminder that we can have strong disagreements, but still find common ground and work towards shared goals.
Right. And that's where the true leadership comes in.
Yeah.
Washington didn't try to exploit those divisions for his own gain.
Right.
He wanted to bridge them. He was looking at the bigger picture, trying to build something strong and lasting.
It makes you wonder, though, about all those tough choices he had to make in the Northwest Territory with the treaties on all these other issues.
Right.
Did he ever hesitate, knowing those decisions would have this ripple effect throughout history?
That's where the concept of consequences comes in.
Right.
And it feels like that's something that's often missing in today's political landscape.
Yeah.
It's all about short-term wins and scoring political points.
Right.
But what about the long game?
Yeah.
Washington understood that his choices weren't just about him.
Right.
They were shaping the future of the nation for generations to come.
It's almost like we're living in the shadow of his presidency, both the good and the bad. Our political system, our relationship with Native American tribes, our place in the world.
Right.
It all goes back to those early decisions.
It's humbling, but it's also a chance to learn and grow.
Yeah.
We can look back, see where things went wrong, and try to do better.
Right.
That's what's so valuable about studying history.
Speaking of valuable, let's circle back to that YouTube video on the Treaty of Greenville.
Yeah.
It does such a great job of showing the human side of these historical events.
Right.
It wasn't just about lines on a map.
Right.
It was about real people.
Yeah.
With their own hopes and fears and motivations.
What's fascinating is how it highlights the diversity of the Native American tribes involved.
Right.
Each tribe had its own perspective and goals.
Yeah.
And they were all navigating this incredibly complex relationship with this new and powerful nation.
And remember, these were sovereign nations negotiating with the United States.
Right.
The stakes were incredibly high for everyone involved. And the outcomes, like we've been talking about, weren't always fair or equitable.
Yeah.
The Treaty of Greenville did bring a period of peace, But it also, like, resulted in significant land cessions for many Native American tribes.
It's a stark reminder that history is often written from the perspective of the victors.
Yeah.
And it's so important to seek out multiple viewpoints to get the full picture.
Absolutely. It's like piecing together a puzzle.
Yeah.
And each source gives you a different piece. The more pieces you have, the clearer the image becomes.
Yeah, what's so valuable about these sources is that they don't shy away from the complexity and the contradictions.
Right.
They show us that history is messy, that even great leaders like Washington made mistakes, and that there's always more to learn.
It really makes you wonder how he would handled the challenges we face today.
Right.
Would he have been able to bridge the divides that feel so deeply entrenched in our own society?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Right.
We can't know for sure.
Yeah.
But what we can take away from Washington's example is the importance of principled leadership, the power of dialogue and compromise, and the understanding that a nation's true strength lies in its unity.
You know, it's easy to get caught up in all the negativity swirling around in the news and on social media. But these sources kind of offer a glimmer of hope. I mean, after all, Washington managed to create a nation out of chaos. And he set a precedent for leadership that still resonates today.
That's a powerful point.
Yeah.
And it brings us back to that initial question of why Washington matters today.
Right.
His legacy isn't just about the past.
Right.
It's about the enduring values of democracy, freedom, and unity that we're still striving to uphold in our own time.
We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We have.
But it feels like we've only scratched the surface. There's so much more to explore.
Absolutely.
About this pivotal period in American history.
There's always more to uncover.
Yeah.
More perspectives to consider. And more lessons to be learned.
Right.
That's the beauty of history.
Yeah.
It's an ongoing journey of discovery.
Well said.
Thank you.
And for you listening, we'll leave you with this final thought.
Okay.
What can you do in your own life
to
champion the kind of unity that Washington believed in, that strength in our differences?
Right.
It's a question worth pondering as we all navigate the complexities of our own time.